Hello there, greetings, welcome back. We are continuing our modeling adventure with our Mark VII Viper, as seen in the TV series Battlestar Galactica. Now, let's see, there's the body overall is looking pretty good. There are some things here and there that I wouldn't mind changing, like, I could save a triangle, maybe merging this, or I could save another one, maybe merging some of these. But overall, all things considered, the flow is easy enough for me to read that I feel like I could texture this comfortably, and that's important to me. I want to know that I can just kind of jump in and have a good time with the texturing without going into a panic attack or anything. So let's see here. One of the things I wanted to knock out, because it should be pretty easy, is getting the little wing tippy thingies. I'm sure these actually have a name on real aircraft as to what you would call them on a Viper. I'm just going to go with wing tippy thingies. Now, if I straighten out this edge, actually, let me straighten it out in the other direction. We'll pull things out and we'll just kind of plug something in here. Because we have two separate shapes which are not connected, I'm going to build this out of a third shape, which will also not be connected. So, to get started on that, let's add in a new object. So we'll go to Add, Mesh, and we'll bring in a cube, which should be sitting over here all by its lonesome, and it is. We'll go to the top view, go to wireframe view by tapping the Z key, and obviously this is just, you could say that we're done, that's perfect, but, that wouldn't be true. So let's hit S, and we'll scale this down. I'll slide it over a little. Now, if we go to the front view, which Control 1 on the numpad should do that, we can slide this down. And this has got a pretty interesting shape because we can see that it's taller than it is wide and it's kind of tilted. So I'm going to do a few things. Let's hit S, X to scale in X. And we'll flatten this in a bit. Excuse me. And we'll hit R to rotate it over, like so. And that's pretty close. One thing we can do, at least I'm thinking we can do, let me undo what I just did there, slide this out of the way for just a moment. We got a great big gap before we get to any important vertices up here. I'm going to deselect, hit B, grab all these vertices. I'm going to do a couple of really scary things. Let me just try this. Let's see how well it works. Let's scale in X and flatten these out. And then we'll rotate them over, and then I'll move them outward and upward just to try to clean that up a little bit. And hopefully that all worked out really well. If I get out of wireframe view, it looks nice and clean, and nice and clean is generally what I like to see. There's a few things I can adjust here because you can see how that kind of screwed up the edge of our wing just a little bit. And if we come up here to the top view, we can get a better idea of how it got screwed up and just kind of put that back in line. Now, let's see, we were lined up before, so we need to pull that back in, so that's good. Okay, now back over to this guy. So B, grab all these vertices, jump back over to the front view. Okay, looking nice so far. And let's see, if I hit B, okay, sorry, I'm just kind of off in space for a minute. I want to go to space. Let's hit B, grab B, grab this guy too, and we'll pull this up and in. So I'm keeping things relatively nice and straight. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. Now, I'd like to go ahead and give a little bit of a bevel to this, and there is no default bevel the way I think of beveling in Blender. There is a script that can be downloaded that user on 3DBuzz, WindyButtUK, pointed it out to me, and it works really well. The angle calculation isn't exactly what I would call the best in the world, but it does work. However, I don't have it installed on this machine right now, and I don't plan on jumping on the internet to go grab it. But I will mention that it is out there for those of you who want to use it. What I'm going to do instead, though, is hit Control-R, roll my mouse wheel up to create two edges like so. So To Control Tab E for edges, grab this edge loop by holding down the Alt key and clicking Control E, switch over to Edge Slide, slide this guy out to you. Well, Alt click on you and hit Shift R. Doesn't work that way, so say Control E, Edge Slide. Boom, and there we go. Now the cool thing about doing that is that I can grab this edge. Actually, let's just do it this way. Let's go back over to the front view. And Control Tab V for vertices. Hit B to grab this guy, hit B to grab this guy, and we can just slide these down, sort of center them up. Like so. And that creates a nice little bevel. And let's deselect. We want, oop, don't do that. Hit B, grab this guy, hit B, grab this guy. And we'll slide up, move over, and just kind of bevel these out as well. Pretty simple, right? Okay, now shifting over to a top view. Obviously, it's not lining up ideally with everything we got. I'm going to hold on Control and hit the plus key, and then I'll slide this back. And you can see that's actually lining up pretty well at the thickest part of this little shape, which is good. That's, generally what I want to see. Now, let's grab edges, Control Tab E. And will it let me grab like an edge loop? But obviously it did not. So let's hit Control Tab F actually, and I'll grab all three of these faces at the front of this shape. Let's go back over to the top view. And I'm not going to extrude actually. I'm just going to pull all these forward. And then we'll scale them down and kind of line them up this way. Now that's actually looking pretty good. Obviously there's some thickness adjustments we can make along the way, and we'll get to that. But for now, we'll grab these three faces here at the back. Let's jump over to the side view. And yeah, we're going to have to make some serious adjustments, but that's all right. Obviously the height is a problem, so we can slide that down, and then the thing starts looking pretty good. However, that does concern me. How far off do we get over here? Not that far, but I think I'm just going to stick to what I see in the front view and not worry so much about discrepancies here. It's just not the kind of thing that I find myself freaking out over. So we'll pull this back and scale it down to a bit of a point. So I'm just kind of mentally interpolating this is going to have to be a little bit further up, which is okay. And we can kind of see that there's a little bit of an interesting problem. And okay, I don't want to use the term problem. There's a little bit of depth in this image, if you can't see it, because we can actually, it looks like we could make out both of those points. So there's one here and there's one here. It looks like that's the one on the right wing and this is the one on the left wing. Which is cool. It's not a problem. As long as we know that going in, we should be just fine. So if we've got that as the front, I think what I'd like to do is save a little bit of, yeah, okay. Let me just do this. We'll hit Control R. We'll add a point, well, add an edge right here. Let's grab this front edge. We'll pull it forward and then scale it down a bit. This kind of helps turn that more into a point. Let's go back over to here. And that's okay. I think I can deal with that. Okay, back over to the top view where things do kind of line up pretty nicely. Take Control R and we can start adding some edges in here that we can just scale up and just sort of improve the rounding overall. And I'm going to have to check this out in the 3D view as well, just to make sure that, we're doing our job in covering up the edge of the wing pretty well. Alt click, and we can scale this up. Now I'm feeling an excess of detail here. It's almost like for such a little part, there's really almost too much detail here. Well, let me just see what happens if I grab this edge. Now, deleting this edge loop does work, which is good. So let's pull that away, and let me just see if I can live without that. But to kind of help me feel like this is pointing a little better, well, I could point it that way, yeah. Let me just try that and see if that makes me feel better about the whole thing. If I hit Control R, grab this guy, Control Tab F, grab you, hit point because I'm tired of trying to zoom in on just the right spot. Also, my screen resolution is so low right now because I'm recording videos, so it does feel a little weird sometimes. Okay, now with that done, yeah, let me see if I can do this. Control Tab V, grab you, and I can't get much closer, so let's hit Control Space to get rid of my widget. Alt M at center, Shift R, grab these two, Shift R, grab these two, Shift R, and then grab these two, Shift R, and grab these two and Shift R, and then I can get these two and just slide them forward to create a point without investing so many polygons. Okay. So let's get out of here, hit Tab, and that seems to be doing its job well enough that I recognize what's going on. Let's see, there is the matter of this. I just like to add a little more rounding back here. So I'm just going to drop in an edge, right-click to just center it, and then we'll just scale it up a little bit. And maybe I'll slide it back a little. So that's it. That's all I wanted to do. Now, I did like how we handled some saving of detail, what we did in the front just a second ago. So I'm going to do that again. Control Space to get rid of my widget. Grab these guys, and let's just merge them. So Alt M at center, Shift R, and hit the point key to line up on that. Grab these guys, merge to center, merge to center. And this I'm going to leave a little blocky in the back, so it's not pointing down so much. Okay, so we've got that shape in place. Now, where we go from here, we could go in two directions. We could start working on the engines, because we got to do them sometime. Or we could start working on the guns. So what I'm going to do is work on the guns. And then I'm thinking, and you can be the judge, if we take a look here, it looks like we've pretty much got the same gun repeated 3 times. So if I build one, like say the one here on the center part of the wing, or the vertical stabilizer, because you need one of those in space too, I just like to point out. If we build that's straight up and down, so it's pretty easy to construct. Then we can take it and just duplicate it and make one over here as well. And if we're still mirroring, that'll make the other one on the other side. So that's great. Let's jump over to the side view. And we could just begin construction, kind of dive right in. So let's see, I think I'm going to start here, and we'll just kind of work our way forward and upward. Let's create, off the top of your head, you're probably wanting to create a cylinder. I mean, I kind of do too, but I think I'm going to make a box instead. So let's add a mesh and make a cube. And of course, it comes in all over there. Let's hit Control Tab F. Grab this face, hit X, and delete it out, which is good. And then let's grab U, Control, hit plus a few times, and hit Control Space to bring our little widget back. And we'll slide this over and kind of slam it in like so. That's nice. And I'll grab... Actually, well, yeah, that's fine. I just gotta dig that other face out, which... Let me just hit Control plus a few times so I can be lazy and just slide this up. Awesome. Okay, now let's Control Tab E for edges. I'm going to pull this edge down. Actually, hang on. Let me do this in one swift motion. So S for scale, Z for the z-axis, boom, there we go. And that already automatically starts to make something that's vaguely cylindrical. Now, back over to the side view. We can grab all of this, and we can scale it down. And we can scale it in Z and kind of thin it out, about like so. And we can start moving it into position. And let's do scale Y, and I'm going to shorten it to about here. We'll slide it back, and we're just kind of making this area, as you can see. Okay, now, it looks a little wide. You know, I'm thinking maybe it's just a little too wide to use. So let's grab faces, let's grab this face on the outside, and we'll slide this in like so. And check it out from the side view. So apparently that thing is kind of tall, if I'm reading this right. Yeah, it's kind of got an oblong shape to it. And if we take a look like at this image, it sort of supports that. It looks a little taller than it is wide. So we'll go with it. We'll just ride with that and see where we go. Alright, so that's looking good. Let's go ahead and start shaping out the rest of it. Now, to do this, let me jump over to the side view because we have a much clearer picture of what's going on from the side view. And I'm thinking if we build this out of a few separate parts, we can probably save a few faces where, here's what I mean by that. If I was to just extrude this like so, and then extrude it again to create that thickness like this, and of course I could flatten that out. We got 1, 2, 3 quads all inside of there, which is, it's not the most horrible thing ever. But if I just build the thing out of a new shape, in fact I could just duplicate this shape, then it seems like we're going to end up with fewer faces to make all that happen. So yeah, let me just do it that way. Let's grab all of these faces. I'm going to hit Shift D, right click, slide this forward until it's about centered up, and I'm centering it by using those little handles on the faces, by the way, if you're curious. And we can scale the whole thing up slightly, and then scale the whole thing down just in the y-axis to thin it out. Right about there. Now the only problem with this mentality that is coming readily to mind is if I try to round this out, I'm going to have to round this piece out separately. So that is something to think about. I wonder about that. I'll tell you what, I'm going to abort and change my mind. Only because that's my prerogative. Let's undo a few times. I am going to go ahead and extrude it out, and then later on, if I just really have the urge to start budgeting down some polys right there, then yeah, I'll handle it that way. It's just, I want to be able to add a little bit of additional rounding to this if it's needed, and I can always break it out again later. So, slide this out, hit E, drag that forward. Now, there's a couple of ways to do what I'm about to do. Here's the way I'm going to do it, though. We're going to hit Control R right here, roll our mouse wheel up once, drop in our edges, right-click to leave them at the center, or right-click to move our 3D cursor around, because that's always fun, right? Put that out there somewhere in space. And let's hit Scale Y, SY. Pull this out a little. I'm not going to make it perfectly flush, but pretty close. Then we will just simply scale these out, like so, and then SY, pull them back in. So there we go. Now it looks like that has made this a little taller. It's like the added thickness is a little more pronounced on top and bottom. So let's just kind of take a look over here. It looks like we can increase that on these sides as well. Also, you know, Control Tab F, let's grab faces. If I grab, well, that's not the face I want at all, really. Let's see, this face and this face, we can slide these out. And then just this face by itself, I can slide out a little bit further. There we go, and that kind of thickens the whole thing up a bit, which is nice and very cool. Okay, now the gun itself Has just a couple of really simple parts from the looks of it. We've got the barrel. I may just omit this little tiny thin piece here. It'll depend on a couple of things. And then we've got these little pincher-like thingies that go on the top and bottom of it. And if we take a look here, although I realize this is not the most high-res photo in the world, we can see that. Let me see if I can find a higher resolution shot of just that part if I dig through all of my reference data. That's pretty close. You can see it. It's almost like a miniature version of the shape we're using to form the canopy, just plugged in right there, which is pretty cool. We could actually steal the canopy and lower its vertices, but it's such a simple shape I won't bother with that. Okay, so I think that's enough data for us to work from to know what we're building, so let's just kind of move forward. Here's how I'm going to handle this. I'm going to grab edges. Of course, I could just grab these guys, but no, let me grab edges. So we'll grab this edge here, and we'll pull this down, and this edge here, and we'll pull this up. And this is just making a bit of a cylindrical-like shape, or I guess you could say half of a cylinder. Round that out a little bit. It does not need to be completely perfect, but it is rounder than it was a second ago. Control-Tab F for faces, and we'll grab this face, jump back over to the side view, hit extrude, and just pull this right out to the end. Awesome. Now, let's hit Control-R and drop in an edge here, and Control... Well, let me do an edge loop around there. I didn't think it would, and I wasn't disappointed it wouldn't. So let's switch over to faces, grab this face over here. Let's scale this down just a bit. And Control R here, roll the mouse wheel up here, slide these guys back to about there. We'll grab this edge loop by itself and scale it down. And we can grab this edge loop and also scale it down as well. And it looks like we can do a little bit of adjustment to the faces to make this a little more identifiable as a cylindrical-like shape. So kind of take some of the oblongedness out of it. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now let's add in a cube, which is going to float out there in space again, which is fine. Let's grab this back edge and delete it, or back face, excuse me. Now, let's see. I'll just take the whole thing. So, Control plus to get all of it. Scale, make it tiny. Make it so tiny. And then we'll grab this face, hit X, delete faces. Grab any one of these faces. I don't care which. Grab everybody with Control plus. Slam these together here in the middle. Hit point to kind of zoom in on the thing. Then we'll slide it forward. Slide down, we need to scale it down even more. Now, switch over to edges. Let's grab this outer edge. And actually, let me grab this front edge, and I'm going to hit the point key to kind of zoom in on that. And while I'm here, I'm going to pull this down a little. Pull this up a little. Okay. Now I'm going to do vertices. Let's grab this vertex and we'll slide it forward. Let's grab these vertices and I'll slide them inward. Pull this guy down, pull this guy forward, pull this guy down, pull these inward. That's almost the amount of detail that I want to make this shape happen. But let's pull these forward, and that'll add some rounding to it, which should help a great deal. It's so small that that should probably be more than enough. Let's just try that. So, Control plus a few times so I have everybody, and then we can just sort of slide this back and plug it in. Jump over to the side view, and it's close. Control Tab F to grab faces, grab this face here, slide it forward. And then if you just really feel like you need the extra detail, we could add some here and then start using it to kind of round everything out. Now, with that done, let me just switch over to faces. It'll do the same job. I just feel better selecting faces. Let's hit Shift D. And I'm going to right click. I'm going to slide this down. Let's rotate, so R, around Y, so hit the Y key, and let's say 180 degrees. Is that going to work, or is that just going to, yeah, it's going to smash it in a little bit. Okay, fine, then we'll just scale it. So scale, Z, -1. I should have known that trying to rotate around the mirror would cause an issue or 5. And I was not terribly disappointed in that. Okay, cool. So if we pull out of here, hit Tab, let's just kind of smooth everything out for now. Oh, I guess it helps if I have the thing selected. Smooth. There we go. And we got at least the beginning part of the gun taken care of. Now let's go ahead and see if we can start getting some work done on the body for the gun. So let's jump back over to the side view, and let's go back to wireframe view. Now it's pretty straightforward. I can probably get away with making this little indentation, and I guess I will. Some part of me kind of wants to skip it and let it be part of the texture. It's not repeated on the other guns that I'm seeing. Yeah, so there is a little bit of a physical difference. So let's actually not worry about it. If I get done and I'm just like, oh, it just doesn't look the same without it, then of course I can always add it back in later. Okay, so let's see here. If I grab faces, let's shade this up, hit Tab. I'm just curious to myself here. If I grab faces like here, actually deselect, all I want is these faces here, and hit Shift D, right click, and I pull this back. And then, let's see, I can scale it up, make it bigger, about like so. That's probably a good place to start with this shape, I'm thinking. Alright, let's jump over to the side view, get out the wireframe view, Control Tab, E for edges, and I want to grab, well, all these edges really. There we go, and we're going to slide these back to about here. Now let's just, well, yeah, actually that's working out in our favor so far. Scale Z, we're going to pull this down just a little, kind of snug it up. I'm going to alt-click on this front edge and we'll pull this back. The big thing I want to make sure is that this is still big enough to kind of hang out on either side, and right now it's not. So let's hit Control Tab F, and we'll just grab this face, and we'll pull it out a little ways. Because we need that. This thing needs to be bulky enough to stick out a ways. Okay, now if I go back to wireframe view, I should be able to grab this edge. I'm trying to think of the shape I want to create here. Let me see. If I hit E, I can extrude this out. And let me just tag it together like so, and then let's grab this edge and hit F, and this edge and hit F to solidify that, and just kind of, oh, didn't mean to, I don't want to scale it that way, that looks horrible. Scale, oh, it looks like it extruded. I must have hit E by accident. I probably did, so boom, we'll scale that down. Unshade, and that looks, well, horrible. We can pull that out. Yeah, I may have to rethink how I just did that. Let's see here. If I grab these edges and I can pull these out just a little bit further, that helps. Is there a problem with the amount of thickness I'm adding to this gun in the top view? That's a good question. Not so much. Not really. Though it does look like it may taper a bit as it goes forward. In fact, it looks like it does, which is good to know. So, but the back thickness, I'm actually kind of digging, at least for the moment. If I change my mind later, then I'll just fix it later. Okay, maybe I changed my mind a little bit now. Let's pull this in just a ways. And yeah, I'm thinking this may not have been my my most shining moment ever. Let's grab faces. I'm actually going to nuke these out. And hit X, so boom, goodbye. And we're going to do this a slightly different way. I want this edge, and we're going to extrude it. And then I'm going to extrude it again, and that's the one that I'll just kind of tag together, and that makes for a nice quad up here, F, and a nice quad up here, F, with plenty of room to control how things are meeting together, which is good. That's what I want to see right there. Now I can take this edge, and I can start to pull this in to get some of that tapering. We can grab edges on the... Well, actually, hang on. Let me jump over to the side view. Ooh, nice. So we can grab these edges and pull them forward like so. That's lining up relatively well. This could line up just a little bit better. And then we can grab edges here and here. Do I have yeah, I have both of them. And we can extrude these out. So just E, pull forward. And that gives us the basis to start creating... let's go for vertices. Start creating these little shapes at the top and bottom. So I can stretch that out. I can stretch this out. And you can see it's a pretty good start. Obviously, there's still some work to be done. However, we're at about the 31-minute mark, and I think we're at a really nice stopping point. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. I wanted to thank all of our member sponsors for everything that they do to make 3DBuzz possible. And, of course, everybody out there who is watching these videos and learning from them, thank you. And hope to see you again on the next modeling video. Take it easy.